I should have known better than to bring Emma to my mother's 70th birthday party. But hope is a dangerous thing, especially when it comes to family. I kept thinking that maybe this time would be different. Maybe seeing her only granddaughter would soften something in her. The country club ballroom was decorated with white roses and gold ribbons. My mother sat at the head table in her emerald dress, holding court like the queen she'd always imagined herself to be. My sister Jennifer's 3 children surrounded her, laughing at her jokes and posing for photos. Perfect grandchildren from the perfect daughter. Emma and I stood near the entrance. She wore the yellow dress I'd saved 3 months to buy, her dark hair in careful braids. She clutched a wrapped present against her chest. "Mommy, when do I give Grandma her gift?" Emma whispered. "Soon, sweetheart. Let's wait for the right moment." My brother-in-law spotted us first. "Oh, you actually came," he said, not bothering to hide his surprise. "Didn't think you could afford the entry fee to this place." I forced a smile. "It's Mom's birthday. Of course we came." Jennifer approached with her usual concerned expression that never quite reached her eyes. "Sarah, I'm glad you're here. Mom was wondering if you'd show up." She glanced down at Emma. "Oh, you brought her. Her name is Emma. Your niece. Right. Well, try not to let her touch anything. Everything here is quite expensive." Emma's hand tightened in mine. She understood more than people gave her credit for. We made our way to our assigned table, naturally placed at the far corner of the room, away from the family tables. I recognized a few distant cousins who offered polite nods before returning to their conversations. We didn't belong here. We'd never belonged anywhere in this family. The evening proceeded with speeches and toasts. My mother's friends praised her charity work, her volunteer efforts, her dedication to family. I watched Emma's face as my mother spoke about the importance of grandchildren, how they brought such joy to her life, how blessed she was to have such wonderful ones. She gestured to Jennifer's children, who stood and waved as everyone applauded. Emma looked up at me. "Mommy, why didn't Grandma mention me?" "She has a lot of people to thank, honey. I'm sure She forgot about me again." I had no answer for that. Because my mother hadn't forgotten. She'd never acknowledged Emma in the first place. When the cake was brought out, a massive 3-tiered creation decorated with edible flowers, the room erupted in applause. My mother made a show of blowing out the candles, making a wish and cutting the first slice. The servers began distributing pieces to the guests. Emma's eyes lit up. She loved cake, especially chocolate. One of the servers approached our table with slices for the other guests but skipped right past Emma. "Excuse me," I called out. "My daughter didn't get a piece." The server looked uncomfortable. "I was told not to serve that table." "What? Who told you that?" "Ma'am, I'm just following instructions." I felt heat rising in my face. I watched as every other child in the room enjoyed their cake, including Jennifer's children who were on their second slices. Emma sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, trying so hard to be good. I stood up and walked directly to my mother's table. "Mom, Emma would like some cake." My mother barely glanced up from her conversation. "I'm sure there's cake at home. It's your birthday cake. All the other children got a piece." "Well, Sarah, perhaps if you raised your daughter with better manners, she'd be included more often." Nearby conversations quieted. People were listening now. "What are you talking about? Emma has done nothing wrong." My mother set down her fork with deliberate precision. "Last month's family picnic. She refused to play with her cousins. She's shy. She needed time to warm up. And Christmas. She barely said thank you for the gift I sent. She was 3 years old and terrified because you kept commenting on her weight." My mother's expression hardened. "I don't appreciate being spoken to this way at my own party. If you can't be respectful, perhaps you should leave. I just want my daughter to have a piece of cake. Only good grandchildren get treats, Sarah. Maybe when she learns to behave properly in public, she'll be included. Until then, I suggest you teach her some manners." I stood there, shaking with anger and humiliation, aware that dozens of people were watching this exchange. Before I could respond, I felt a small hand slip into mine. Emma had walked up beside me. She looked directly at my mother with those serious brown eyes that saw far too much for a 6-year-old. "Mean grandmas don't deserve happiness," she said clearly. The room went completely silent. My mother's face flushed red. "Excuse me," my mother said, her voice dangerously quiet. Emma didn't flinch. She reached into her dress pocket and pulled out a small wrapped box. This is why Mommy cries at night. My heart stopped. I hadn't realized Emma knew about those nights. The nights after phone calls with my mother, after family events where we were ignored, after another birthday passed without acknowledgement. I thought I'd hidden it well. Emma held out the box to my mother. I made you a present. Mommy helped wrap it, but I made it myself. I worked on it for 2 months. My mother stared at the box as if it might explode. Jennifer stood up from her seat. Emma, sweetie, maybe this isn't the right time. Open it, Emma said simply. Please. The entire room watched as my mother slowly took the box. She unwrapped it with careful movements, lifting the lid. Inside was a handmade card, the kind only a child could create. Construction paper, glitter glue, stick figure drawings. My mother pulled it out. On the front, Emma had drawn 2 figures holding hands under a rainbow. Inside, in her careful 6-year-old handwriting, it read, Dear Grandma, I love you even though you don't love me. I hope this makes you happy. Love, Emma. Below that were 12 other cards, one for each month Emma had been making them. Birthday cards. Just because cards. All unsent. All decorated with the desperate hope of a child wanting to be loved by her grandmother. My mother's hands trembled as she looked through them. I saw her face change, saw something crack in her carefully maintained composure. But she quickly recovered, her mask sliding back into place. How manipulative, she said coldly. Teaching your daughter to make me feel guilty at my own birthday party. This is exactly the kind of behavior I'm talking about, Sarah. Always the victim, always trying to make me the villain. I didn't know about the cards, I said quietly. She made them on her own. Sure she did. A 6-year-old just happened to create this elaborate guilt trip without any coaching. My mother dropped the cards back into the box. I won't be emotionally blackmailed by a child. Emma's lower lip trembled, but she didn't cry. She'd learned early not to show weakness around my family. We'll leave, I said. Come on, Emma. Wait. Jennifer's husband stood up, his face unusually serious. Margaret, I think you should see this. He'd picked up one of the cards from the box. This one is dated 8 months ago, long before you even announced this party. He held up another. This one's from her 5th birthday. She wrote, I wish Grandma would come to my party. He looked at my mother. This isn't manipulation. This is a child who desperately wants her grandmother's love. My mother's jaw tightened. Stay out of this, David. I can't. Not anymore. He looked around the room. We've all watched this for years, watching you exclude Sarah and Emma. Making excuses. Pretending it's about manners or respect or anything other than the fact that Sarah didn't marry the man you wanted her to, didn't have the life you planned for her. How dare you? Emma is 6 years old, David continued. She's innocent in whatever issues you have with your daughter. And she's been making these cards, one every month, hoping that maybe this would be the month her grandmother would acknowledge her. Jennifer looked uncomfortable. David, this is Mom's birthday. Can we not do this now? When should we do it? At Emma's next birthday that no one attends? At party when we all pretend she doesn't exist? One of my mother's oldest friends, Patricia, spoke up from a nearby table. Margaret, I've known you for 40 years. This isn't who you are, or at least it's not who you used to be. My mother stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I won't be lectured at my own party. Sarah, take your daughter and leave. You've ruined enough. I bent down to Emma's level. Come on, sweetheart. Let's go home. Emma looked at the table full of cake, at her cousins who'd barely acknowledged her existence, at the grandmother who'd rejected her handmade gifts. Then she reached out and took my hand. We walked toward the exit, passing tables of relatives who suddenly found their plates very interesting. I held my head high, refusing to let them see how much this hurt. We were almost to the door when we heard it. Wait. I turned. My mother stood in the middle of the ballroom, the box of cards in her hands. She looked smaller, somehow older. The emerald dress that had seemed so regal now just looked like a costume. These cards, she said, her voice barely carrying across the silent room. You really made these yourself? Emma nodded. Every month. Another nod. My mother opened the most recent card again, reading the careful words. I love you even though you don't love me. She looked up at Emma with something I'd never seen in her eyes before, something that might have been shame. I do love you, my mother said quietly. I just forgot how to show it. Emma didn't run to her. She wasn't that naive. She just stood there holding my hand waiting. I'm sorry, my mother said. I'm sorry for the cake. I'm sorry for all of it. Emma considered this for a long moment. Then in that brutally honest way only children possess, she said, sorry isn't magic. It doesn't fix mean. My mother flinched as if she'd been slapped. Around the room, people shifted uncomfortably. Jennifer started to object, but David put a hand on her arm. You're right, my mother said. It doesn't fix it. But maybe it's a start. Emma looked up at me. I saw the question in her eyes. I couldn't tell her what to do. This had to be her choice. Can I have cake now? Emma asked. A laugh escaped my mother, surprised and genuine. Yes. Yes, you can have cake. We didn't leave. We sat at our corner table while my mother personally brought Emma the biggest slice of cake along with ice cream. She sat down across from us, something she'd never done before. Tell me about school, my mother said to Emma. Emma, with chocolate frosting on her face, told her about her teacher, about learning to read, about her best friend who'd moved away. My mother listened, really listened. I don't know if this moment of clarity would last. I don't know if my mother would wake up tomorrow and remember how to be cruel again. Family patterns, especially toxic ones, don't disappear overnight. But Emma had done something I'd never managed in 32 years. She'd held up a mirror and forced my mother to see herself, not with anger or accusations, but with simple, heartbreaking honesty. As we drove home later, Emma clutching a piece of cake wrapped in a napkin for later, she asked, Mommy, why do you cry at night? I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Because I want better for you than I had. Did Grandma make you sad when you were little too? Yes, sweetheart. Emma was quiet for a moment. The cards didn't work, did they? She's not going to change. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. That's okay, Emma said. I have you. That's enough. And somehow hearing those words from my 6-year-old daughter, I realized she was right. It was enough. More than enough. Whether my mother chose to be part of our lives or not, whether she learned from tonight or retreated back into her cruelty, Emma and I would be fine. We had each other. We had love that didn't come with conditions or requirements. We had truth even when it hurt. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is tell the truth. Sometimes a 6-year-old can see clearly what adults have spent years rationalizing away. And sometimes, mean grandmas don't deserve happiness until they learn to stop being mean. Emma fell asleep on the drive home, the wrapped cake balanced on her lap, a small smile on her chocolate-stained face. She'd stood up to someone who terrified me. She'd spoken truth to power with nothing but honesty and handmade cards. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if my mother would call tomorrow or if we'd go back to being invisible. But I knew that tonight my daughter had shown me what courage looked like. And that was worth more than any piece of cake or family approval could ever be. The gift box sat on the passenger seat, cards scattered inside. 12 months of hope. 12 months of a child's unconditional love offered to someone who'd done nothing to earn it. Mean grandmas don't deserve happiness. But brave little girls who make cards every month hoping for love? They deserve everything.